Hello, my name is Jordan Klein, and I am the host of Fireside Paranormal Podcast. If you're into ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, the unknown, then pull up a chair and join me by the fire as we hear real stories from real people. Each episode, I interview paranormal investigators, authors, experts, and legends in their field. Here at Fireside Paranormal Podcast, we have something for everyone. If you're an experienced researcher or if you're just getting into it, we have a spot for you. We're found anywhere you listen to podcasts, so grab your friends, tune in, and remember, don't be afraid, only believe.
You ever seen a ghost? Been abducted? Heard your name whispered from the other room when you're all alone? No, you say? Me either. But if you're like me, you're still fascinated by the paranormal. It seems everyone else has had an experience, and you want to believe it all. So why doesn't it happen to us? What does it all mean? How does it work? Is any of it real? Welcome to Paranorm Girl, a show that will attempt to answer these questions by taking the paranormal completely apart in search of proof. I'm not a blind believer, nor a hardened skeptic. I'm just looking for answers and willing to accept what I find. Welcome back to the Paranorm Girl podcast. I am your host, Kristen. I've got a very special bonus episode prepared for you guys. No announcements today. I want to get right to it. Please enjoy my conversation with Santero and witch, Dave Linabury. My special guest today for this very special bonus episode is massively knowledgeable on things occult, witchcraft, supernatural, and high strangeness. Please welcome to the show artist and friend David Linabury.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome.
Yeah. Getting into anything fun on this beautiful Sunday?
It is a beautiful day, yeah. I'm just working on my cards and trying to get that thing done. I have a lot of drawings to do. So.
Yeah. So as people may recognize your name, or more so recognize the Instagram handle at davezilla.art, they will recognize the Tarot of the Unexplained, as I've been supporting it and promoting it last couple episodes. I'm so very excited about it. I just totally support this campaign. And we will talk more about it near the end of the episode. But how close are you to finishing?
There's 78 cards. I'm at 64. So I'm really close.
Okay. Yeah. Just right around the corner. Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw you you posted something recently about the court cards. You had just finished them or just started them?
I just started those. That's all I have left is the quartz. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see it. I've been loving the designs that have been coming out, and I can't wait to see it all done. But
I'm excited too.
Yeah,
I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Absolutely, of course. Well, I rather than me try to explain to folks who you are, what you're about, all of the paranormal goodness that you know about and are into, maybe you could just kind of give us a little background on yourself.
Sure. I had the unfortunate experience of being born into a Baptist family, which, and I don't mean to down on Christians, but Baptists tend to be particularly fatalistic and very obsessed with the end of the world, which kind of made me kind of a depressed kid. Because I was always thinking, and plus, I grew up in the 80s when we were under the constant threat of nuclear war. So I just assumed my days were numbered growing up. When I was 15, I had a weird experience in a bookstore. I was just kind of randomly browsing. I didn't have any goal in mind of what to buy. And a book literally fell off the shelf and landed on my feet. And I picked it up, and it was called The Book of Shadows by Lady Sheba. It's, I think, back in print now, but it was out of print for a long time. And it was The Book of Shadows. I was like, that's an interesting title for a book. I had no idea what it was. Read it. I bought it and read it, and it was like, I didn't know there was an entire religion of witchcraft. I thought that was just something evil people did, because I was raised Christian, so I got all the typical, stereotypical misconceptions about witches are these terrible people, and they are in league with the devil and all this stuff. So when I read that no, they're actually a bunch of kind of peaceful hippie types that like to worship the earth and believe in protecting the earth and protecting each other and not harming people. I was like, my mind exploded. And there's a strange phrase in the occult that's when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And that happened to me. Literally, I went to a comics convention of all things in Chicago shortly after reading this book and met a coven of witches there. And they all happened to be from Michigan, where I'm from. And so one thing led to another, ended up getting initiated. And I was just a teenager. Had a weird dream the night after the initiation. I dreamt the same witches took me down in the basement of like a medieval tavern. And it was literally like guys like clanking flagons of beer on the tables, and yelling. And it was like deafeningly loud. And they said, no, we're not going here. We're going in the basement. And I'm like, okay. And we went downstairs, and all of a sudden it was just like this room with no end to it that was all darkness and a dirt floor. And I could see them, but it was no discernible light source, typical dream kind of thing. And they said, strip and get on all fours. And I did. And then all of a sudden this Black Panther came out of the gloom and ran through my body. And I woke up, like I literally woke up thinking that just happened. And, but in the dream they had said, that was your real initiation. Fast forward a few years, I ended up getting initiated into another religion, this Lukumí, which is more commonly known by Americans as Santeria. And the first thing I got they give you divination. And the very first divination I had, they said, you must always keep a black cat in your house for some reason. There's this weird association with you and black cats. And I was like, oh, interesting. And then later I got another reading that said you need to be also initiated into paranormal-based, which was another one of those religions I'd always heard, oh, that's terrible. And I saw, Criminal Minds said it was an evil religion, and no, it's not. It's an ancestor worshiping religion from the Congo. And it sounds incompatible to have, how can you be, a Gardnerian witch and Santeria, I'm a Santero, and a Gangalero in paranormal-based, but all those things are compatible. They all work at the same time. It's okay. We don't see any issues. Like I know people in Santeria who are also rabbis, because there's no conflicting things. I know Buddhists who are in the same religion. You can have multiple beliefs going on if they're compatible and they work for you. And the one thing that really attracted me to Lukumí, to Santeria, was the divination. You don't have rules for everybody. Everyone gets their own set of rules. So the divination is only for you, no one else. The combinations that come up when they read only apply to you. Because some people can handle having their children killed in a school shooting, and other people can't handle their cell phone bills going up. And because of that, we all have different things that we need to learn in this lifetime. And so we all get our own little set of rules. And when you're a priest, you get a book of cycles you'll go through, and you just kind of do the best you can to get around it. But all three of those religions are definitely associated with paranormal. They definitely have some strange things going on in them. I've seen some strange things, and I've heard some stranger things that I wasn't part of.
Wow, isn't it crazy how, you grew up 15 before this book literally fell at you.
Really fell at me?
How crazy it is when somebody decides to take the time to look a little deeper at these things that we have been told all along. Be afraid, be very afraid. You don't want any of what this is about. When you take the time to just look behind the curtain, I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me, and I discovered something not terrible at all, something wonderful and vast and light and like with love. That goes along with the witchcraft, with the Santeria, with those other religions that you spoke about. But because I've heard the same stuff, I wish there was just an easy way to tell people, don't be afraid. Get the education, learn more, try, I guess. So this started all so quickly for you. Like it sounds like it just kind of took off from that first moment in the bookstore. How How willing were you at that point to believe this stuff, since it kind of domino affected on you and just started happening one after another? How willing were you to believe, the dream and get into the rhythm of this?
I think I kind of always was. One, I had a weird experience when I was 5. I'll tell you in a sec. But I was always questioning stuff in the Bible that didn't make sense to me, and I always kept getting told, well, you have to take that on faith. And after so many times of that, you kind of go like, come on, I'm seeing things that are literal contradictions of each other, book to book. Like, you look in the 4 Gospels, and they don't even have the same story about how Jesus was born. They don't have the same story about where he's from even. Is he a Nazarene? Is he an Israelite? Is he a Palestinian? Is he, they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuff drove me nuts. The one that really killed me was Noah's Ark. I was like, wait a minute, penguins, what? How, wait a minute, sloths cross the ocean?
Yeah.
How'd that happen? And also I really believed in dinosaurs, and that one I never saw.
Yeah.
One person pointed out to me that there was unicorns in the Bible, but not in Lord of the Rings. And I was like, what? Turns out, sure enough, Google it if you don't believe me, or I'll tell you the verses if you want to hear them right now. But there's 9 references to unicorns in the Bible.
Ooh, would you tell me
I'm
one?
not
Do you have
kidding.
one ready?
I'll be happy. Oh, here's a funny thing. I've heard Christians say, oh, those aren't talking about real unicorns. They're talking about rhinoceroses. Well, there's no rhinos in Israel. I'm sorry. Those live in Central Africa. But also, this one verse in Psalms 29:6, he maketh them also to skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian, like a young unicorn. Does that skip like a calf sound like a rhino?
It certainly doesn't.
They're kind of plodding, thundering beasts. I wouldn't really see them as being.
Yeah.
And all the other verses kind of treat it like it's some type of, the unicorn was some type of animal used for as a beast of burden. But I was kind of shocked. I was like, wait a minute, there's 9 times it's in here. What the heck?
What was the experience when you were 5?
Oh, I was sledding down. We had a big backyard, really huge backyard that went into a forest. And I was sledding by myself one day and got to the end of the hill and stopped. And I just casually looked up at this old dead tree, and something in the tree looked back at me from the bark of the tree. And I was like, what the heck just happened? I still to this day don't know what that was. Someone's told me that's probably some type of like wood spirit or something.
Like it was was in within the tree, like a part of the tree?
Yeah, almost like like in Wizard of Oz when the trees had faces, but not quite so defined, kind of just like the tree just suddenly moved and smiled at me, and I was like, ooh. I've never had anything like that since. I can say, hey, maybe it was my imagination, but kids tend to see things a little more true than adults do, and because they're not as beaten down by, no, that's not real. No, that's not real.
Yeah.
They just say what they see.
Yeah, they haven't had those skeptical blinders put up yet, and those layers upon layers of skepticism. And no, you're not seeing that. No, that's not real. That person is just your imaginary friend. Yep. Just had a good discussion about that, actually. Well, before we move on from your background and all that you're into, I did want to say, the Bible certainly doesn't do any favors to these alternate, for lack of a better word, alternate religions around the world that they just espouse as just evil and dark and all of that. Hollywood certainly doesn't either, like with African Afro-Caribbean witchcraft. Hollywood has done a pretty big disservice, as you have told me. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's 100% true. If you've seen any movie like The Believers or like I said earlier, the version of, there was one episode, actually several episodes on Criminal Minds where they talked about Palo Mayombe. But of course, anything in Hollywood that involves a religion with Black people is immediately evil. Mm-hmm. And Santeria, which is Africans and Hispanics, must be double evil. So when you see portrayed any African religion, especially voodoo, which is another religion from the Congo and Dahomey regions, you see it's always portrayed the same way. There's one male who's in charge of everything. There's a bunch of drummers doing a very tribal sounding drum beat. and a bunch of black women who suddenly have lost their clothes and are writhing about, unable to control their urges. None of that happens.
Mm-hmm.
None of that happens in any of those religions. And there's no point where this guy takes a knife and swings it down at a bird and blood flies everywhere. Does animal sacrifice occur in these religions? Absolutely. Do we eat the animals afterwards? Yes. That's the big part that they don't put in there. And also that the way we sacrifice is the same way rabbis do. It's just like kosher. We do the exact same method. It's very mundane. There's nothing dramatic about it. And again, we afterwards, after the animal's been presented to the Orisha, which is our kind of version of God, it's cleaned and cooked and we eat it. Because third world countries don't throw away meat.
Yeah.
And that one always killed me. It was like, well, there's, when you see things in the, upside down tentacles and lots of black handles, but that's like generally like kids putting things out. And they might have killed a rat or something or a toad to make it scarier. They do that just to get attention. It has nothing to do with any real religion. None of that stuff's real. But Hollywood has a definite deep-seated racism towards African religions and African-based religions, and they will not show them legitimately.
Yeah, as they really are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an old fear-based and I guess religious-based thing. They just can't let go of it. It's far more flashy and interesting to strike fear and make it seem, savage would be the word that they would apply to that. Yeah.
100%. That is exactly it. They like to keep the image that black people cannot control their emotions, that what they do is black magic, is evil. Even the constant association that black people and black magic, and it's like that's ridiculous,
Yeah, well, you must have some feelings towards mainstream religion and ideology coming from that Baptist upbringing and ending up where you are now. Do you have any like anger towards them, like just disappointment? Like, how do you look at it now?
I think the brainwashing of a lot of the Abrahamic traditions is a little disappointing. And a lot of people who leave those three religions tend to have a hard time unlearning. And you hear a lot of people, you even hear things like, I'm a recovering Catholic, and they're literally associating it with alcoholism. And I totally agree with that. And I have nothing against the Christian religion. I read the Bible still. I think it's an interesting book. It's funny in some parts, but it's a really great religious work. I also like the Bhagavad Gita. I like the Vedas. I like the Odu. I like the I Ching. They're all important. You can learn something from any of them. I don't diss the religion. I diss the participants who don't know how to actually participate in their religion properly. And I think that's the biggest problem. There's nothing wrong with Christianity. There's a lot wrong with Christians, especially when most of them just go to church to, gossip about each other and what they wore and who showed up and who didn't, and that kind of thing. And I grew up seeing a lot of that. Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of them don't actually read the Bible or the teachings of Jesus, which they are
Right.
good teachings. They can teach you to be a better person, and they don't read that stuff or I don't know, misinterpret it.
No, they like to pick and choose verses that work for them, in particular from the book of Leviticus, which is a bunch of Pharisee laws that came out after they realized that the 10 Commandments weren't enough. Like, oh, he said he didn't say anything about goat rape. I guess that's cool. That's still on the table, Well, the Pharisees were like, crap, we got to write some more laws. So they came up with like 200 something more laws. And, if you say something to a Christian like, well, do you eat shellfish? You should be killed then. Like, that's what it says in Leviticus. And like, we don't follow that one anymore. That's kind of an outdated. It's like, okay, well, the one about killing gay people and witches is in there too. So who made you the judge that gets to decide which of those verses is okay?
Yeah.
And it's literally the book of Leviticus that they pick and choose what they like because it's great for their politics and their arguments.
Yeah.
So if you hear that verse or you hear that book mentioned, wait a minute. Give me something from the New Testament.
Yeah, I think the New Testament's a little lighter.
That's supposed to be what they're going by anyways.
Oh, man. Well, I would be interested, if you're okay, sharing, hearing
Sure.
a few more of your paranormal experiences.
Oh, yeah. First, let me tell you one that I heard about, and I wish I saw this, but I didn't. And it was a Santero in New York. at Central Park. A bunch of Santeros were having a big gathering, probably a bembe, which is a drum ceremony, and they had a bonfire going, and a huge bonfire, apparently enough that the fire department came out and said, "You guys cannot do this." And this old Santero from Puerto Rico got up and said, "No, we're doing this." And they squirted the fire out, and she took a blanket and shook it at the smoldering wet ashes, and they burst back into flames. And she turned and looked at them. And they said, "Have a nice day, ma'am." And they left her alone.
All right. What about one that you did experience?
More, I would say, in Wicca, I've seen things. There was one night I was with our coven, and had just finished circling, and something that I still am not sure if this was ball lightning, but it was blue. A large ball about a little bigger than a tennis ball, and it was neon blue, came whipping through the house, and we literally chased it into the laundry room until it disappeared. And we were like, "What the heck was that?"
Whoa.
And we still can't figure out, was that some kind of like weird orb spirit, or was that like ball lightning? We've never seen anything like that or again, but it was really cool.
Because it was just that so like profound, like it was physical.
It was physical, but also it moved slow enough that we could physically chase it. Like, I was thinking the thing with ball lightning is light's pretty fast, and this didn't move that fast. It was kind of like the same speed we were running.
Whoa. Well, okay. So you mentioned coven. How often do you meet with your coven?
Oh, not so often. Mainly because of personal obligations with kids and things like that. But when you do those, a lot of times it's around the seasonal holidays. So there's like 8 major holidays for witches. A lot of them were Christians have taken over and co-opted to kill them. Like, we have one on February 2nd that they now call Candlemas or something, but we had different names for Imbolc. Christmas is Yule.
Mm-hmm.
The equinoxes and the solstices are critical. Samhain, it's not pronounced Samhain. If anyone says that, please stop saying that. It's Samhain. It's Irish, okay? It's an old word. Irish spelling does not make sense with their pronunciations. So the band is Samhain. The holiday is not, but it's a very old. That's a celebration of the ancestors and the dead. And Wiccans only have one holiday a year for that, whereas like in Santeria, it's pretty much every day you celebrate your ancestors, and you have to keep up ancestor altars all the time. And I think that's important too. They really believe that that's like you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your ancestors and your and that doesn't mean like ancient people. It can even just mean your grandpa, your parents, your uncles and aunts, all those people. They're who made you. People that you for some reason have a weird connection to. You know, like I have this strange connection with Oscar Wilde. I put him on my ancestor altar. I think you can do that.
Yeah. We're all connected and related somehow. You know, take it all the way back.
Yeah.
Yeah. You told me about kind of honoring ancestors. I was asking you around the Halloween show, and that is something that I did that Halloween, and I will continue to do so now that I know more about my ancestry. Definitely a lot of people in the past to thank for being here today.
Absolutely. If you go in most Chinese and Thai restaurants, a lot of times you'll see a little tiny altar on the wall, and it's almost always an ancestor altar.
Oh.
There may be like one, they're very respectful of their ancestors too. It's not just the Africans, but it's a big thing. You're here because of them. You're here because of their DNA. It's passed down to you, and that brought all these instructions with it and made you who you are. So honor it. They have a great phrase in Africa that's "we stand on the shoulders of those who went before us."
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, the concept, I asked about the coven because the concept of a coven is not really something I thought about before talking with you today, because it's not really, maybe it's just not like in the mainstream anymore, or it's just not something that people talk about so freely nowadays, just regular folk who aren't involved in this world. So it just didn't occur to me that people do still, they come together and for special occasions, and they do these rituals or whatever the case may be. So your involvement with witchcraft with Wicca, all of
Yeah.
that really intrigues me. And we did speak before recording today about possibly talking about some misconceptions and myths about witchcraft and paganism that people might still have today, if you're ready
And
to
yeah,
jump into it.
and coven's a good one. I mean, Hollywood seems to have co-opted that word now for vampires. I
Yeah,
don't know why, but
exactly. Case in point.
I don't hear it for witches anymore, other than maybe charmed. Yeah, you don't hear it so much. Oh, speaking of Hollywood, I was going to say one of the biggest ones is that, and I heard this from Christians, was that that Hollywood and the government in the U.S. are run by witches, and that proof of that is the shape of the Pentagon and all that stuff. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
so strange. Yeah, I mean that one that sounds very conspiracy theory minded, and I've heard a lot of people kind of thrown into that that bus that the others are running the government and they're running
right,
Hollywood. So it does not surprise me that y'all
we get
get
thrown in
thrown
there
into
too.
it
Yep.
too. Yeah.
Sure. Here's I can just prove it real quickly. You can't get one coven to all show up on time to a ceremony. There's no way they could get their shit together to run a government. We even have a thing called pagan standard time, which means you show up when you show up.
Oh no.
And we also have I mean, most pagans don't all agree in the same thing, the same beliefs. They don't all believe in the threefold law. They don't all believe in the Wiccan creed and all that stuff. Most people do, but not everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
The threefold law is basically if you do something, it comes back on you three times.
Do anything like just bad things or just anything?
Oh, well, it could be, yeah, if you curse someone, it's going to come back on you three times. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If you killed a person through a hex, does that mean you get killed three times? What does it mean? How does that work? But also, it's supposed to be good things. Like if you put out a money spell, you get back three times more than you thought, especially if you did something for someone else. But
Oh.
I don't really buy that one. I think it just sounds clever and cute, but it's a little too bumper stickery for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I think three has always been kind of an important number as far
It
as
is.
ritualistic things. And I have noticed like certain things in life often come in threes, and maybe that's just my imagination. I don't
And
know.
you just said that it was 3:33:33 on my
Oh, it is.
clock,
I'm
which
looking
was
at
really
oh my
strange. Oh
goodness.
my
Well, I'm an hour
God.
behind you, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and
Weird.
yeah, that was weird. Yeah, Tesla said if you understand the number three, you will understand the universe.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you brought that up. I've been doing something that Tesla also talked about. So he was big on the 369, those
Yep.
numbers. And there's something I'm playing around with for the new season where I have to do throughout the day certain things 3 times, 6 times, 9 times, and it's just supposed to be this magical, energetic manifestation thing. So I'm curious to see how it all comes out. But that's interesting you
Three
brought
is,
that up.
yeah, three is big in pretty much every religion. Even for Christians, they have their Trinity.
Yeah, yep. Which they might have borrowed from some other
They
things.
borrowed from the Sumerians. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's another misconception that we've all got?
Oh, that we worship the devil or demons. Because that's why, when you see pictures of the devil, he's always red and has cloven hooves and horns and all that. It's like, no, that actually just you guys stole that from the Greek god Pan, or from the English god Cernunnos or Hern, or the Basque god Janikot. I mean, these are really old horn gods that have been around a long time. The belief in them has been around a long time. But Satan is not supposed to be a person or an object. He's supposed to be like originally an angel,
Mm-hmm.
the highest angel, and so beautiful he was impossible to look at. So why would he suddenly turn into this ugly red little thing? That I don't get. But also, they just like to co-opt things to make it scarier. And, things that look like Krampus or Pan are spooky. So it makes a great enemy or foil to whatever they're doing. But we don't. We don't believe in the devil. We don't believe in demons. We don't. Do we believe there's malevolent spirits? Sure,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I've seen them. But are there things that are? I shouldn't say I've seen them, but I've encountered them. But it's not that. It's not the devil.
Yeah.
And the devil would have I mean, there's 7 billion people on this earth. I really don't think he's going to show up to your ghost hunting thing, you know? He's got more shit to do than that. I don't know.
Well, one, I'm glad you made the distinction between, devil and demons versus a malevolent spirit or energy.
Yep.
Like there's definitely a difference. And you know how I feel about the devil and demons. You listened to the last season, so
Oh, yeah.
oh, yeah.
Learned a lot on that one, but it was interesting. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
good. I personally
yeah.
love the history stuff. The history, learning the history alone about something is going to blow down all of the walls of what, your preconceptions, where everything you thought you knew can be just dashed in a single episode like that one. And that's what it did for me. And, the idea of the devil and Satan and Lucifer, and learning they all had all their own different histories. It was crazy to go through it. But yeah, that was my favorite.
Oh, yeah, how these things get mixed together over time. And one thing that it's difficult for Americans to understand in particular is that in other nations, people aren't so categorical about their religions. Like, I had a friend from Africa who told me, yeah, I worship Ifa, but if my next door neighbor is Muslim and he's got a ceremony that I think would help me, I'll incorporate it. And same thing, if I do a spell that they think is interesting, they'll incorporate it. They don't see the division. They just, hey, we're all on the path, right? Is kind of how they see it. Whereas Americans are like, no, you are this. You must be this. You cannot change this. And I don't know why we're so dogmatic about it. If it's Puritan background or
we're a
what.
society of us, them, me, you. And that
Very,
division. Yeah.
very that.
Well, you all right. So you did tell me 2 other ones before that kind of made me laugh when you said it before. The inability to walk into churches.
Oh, God, I've heard that one so many times.
and the inability to touch crosses or read the Bible. Both of those points, aren't those vampiric as well?
And who knows on that even? I mean, I don't know. I mean, the walking into church, that probably is from vampire lore more than anything.
I know at least they can't go into your house without your permission, but I think church, well, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, they're definitely touching the crosses, and I don't think they can.
And I even saw in one of these talk shows in the 80s, it was like a minister. She's like, you're wearing all black because you're evil, you Wiccans. And he's like, so are you. And she was.
Okay.
And, but it doesn't matter. I go to weddings. Those are in churches. I go in all the time. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind. I love the artwork and the architecture of churches. So that one's garbage. There's nothing stopping us. There's no, I can touch crosses all day. In fact, I have a bunch. I love Mexican crosses with milagros all over them. I have a bunch of those hanging up. I love that stuff. And as you can tell I actually have a pretty good biblical knowledge. I can quote all day. I do read the Bible. Nothing against it.
Okay. All right. Well, what's a few more?
Everything we do is an inversion of what they do. Catholics in particular believe that one, that we invert all their rites. And it's like, no, we don't even like your rites. They're really boring and slow and long. And no, and we don't want to touch altar boys. No, none of this. No.
No.
This is, we don't have anything to do with that. Our stuff's all based on the earth. It's got nothing to do with them. I don't know where any of that stuff comes from. Yeah, because Wiccan stuff tends to be old Indo-European and folk magic, and the Afro-Caribbean tends to be more stuff from Nigeria, Mali, Dahomey, and the Congo.
Yeah, and, they were their own things, before the Catholic and Christians came along. Yeah.
They sure were, and they all have their own story of a God who got resurrected. They all have a story of a flood. They all have a story of a God that takes care of the world and then is too busy to talk to people and all that. It's the same story over and over again. I hear a lot that we actively seek out teenagers to join covens. I'm like, no, we kind of don't want them.
Wait, you don't recruit young people before they can? Teenagers are annoying. Yeah.
God, have you spent time with goth teenagers? No.
I avoid it.
Yeah, I'm too old. They would just be like, oh, dude, like, there's like a gray hairs in your beard. No, they don't. We don't take on anybody. It's like, in fact, a real word for Santeria is la regla de ocho Lukumí. which is a mouthful, but it literally means owners of the selected heads. It means only the Orisha can select you to be in our religion. You can't come in, you can't join if you weren't selected. We actually have a sign in divination that we call the goodbye white girl sign. And it basically means like, this isn't for you. You ain't got the funk in you. You can't be part of this religion.
Oh, I had no idea.
Oh yeah, you can get turned away. Absolutely. In certain signs, it's like and there's even signs in the divination that say, you know what, you should be an atheist. You're not going to be happy with any religion.
Well, how would one, if one wanted to be a part of this, take part in this? Of course, the Orisha are, they have to choose. Like, is that just through like signs, or does
you get a divination done for you. It's not like a tarot reading. It's a lot more involved, and it's pretty formalized. It's kind of strange ceremony, but it's interesting. And then once you get that done, the result of your very first reading is important because it'll determine whether or not you had a place in this or not. And they'll tell you, this isn't for you right off the bat. And if it is, then the Orishas might have brought you there for a reason. And when there's another ceremony they do called getting your head marked. That's a much longer divination ceremony where they find out who is your Orisha. Because we all have one like a guardian angel, but we don't get to pick them. They pick us. So like mine is not one I would have chosen. I mean, it's not that I have anything against her, but people that see me think like, oh, you probably have like some, because I kind of look like a biker, and a lot of people are like, well, you probably have some like tough one, like Chungo. I'm like, nope, I actually have the Yemaya, who's like the mother of the world, and she's the ocean, and she's everything feminine. You would not expect that, but that's who I have.
Well, maybe it's decided based on what you need, not what you want.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Okay. Are y'all having drunk orgies? I know that. That must be a fact.
Oh, maybe after, but that could be after the bar too. No, we don't really do that. It's, I've heard of some. I'm sure there are some covens that do that that are literally into the like Bacchus and the Bacchus cult and all that, and get into what they call bacchanalia.
Yeah.
I'm sure that exists. I just don't know any. Most of the ones I know, I do know. There's a lot of this stupid term, skyclad, which I hate, but it basically means your coven practices nude outdoors. I've been in one of those before. It's not a big deal. I don't see any difference between wearing clothes or not wearing clothes.
Yeah.
Stuff that works, but we don't know. It's not really a thing. The whole drunken orgy thing. It's no.
Yeah. No dancing naked around a fire in the moonlight with the devil. None of that.
No, it's more like an Epstein Island thing. It's not really art.
You're disappointing maybe some of my Christian listeners right now.
I know.
All right. What else? What else are we missing?
Well, let's see. I always say Halloween is our favorite holiday, but all right, that's actually true. Sorry, because it's Halloween. Actually, though, I do know a lot of pagans who love Christmas, and I still put up a Christmas tree. I celebrate Christmas with my kids. I love Christmas. It's cool.
I do too. It'll never stop being the nostalgic thing for me. And it's not, of course, it's not about the material and the buying and that rush, but there's just something very special about the energy that happens. It shifts around that time.
Yeah.
You feel it.
Especially when you look back at like the 19th century Christmas, when it's the Dickens era, you see that it was all about ghost stories. You told ghost stories on Christmas, and that's why the Christmas Carol was written. It's like people were really into that idea of the dead being around back then. Whereas for Wiccans, it's actually Halloween is the time when we claim that the veil between the worlds is thinnest. But here's my argument's always been this against that phrase. It drives me nuts. Veils are thin. What do you mean it's thinnest? Isn't the definition of a veil thin? It's not like we say the heavy shag carpet between the worlds.
Yeah. The high
parted.
school auditorium curtain is the thinnest.
Yeah, it's being pulled back by goblins right now. Yeah, no, that doesn't happen. Yeah, I don't know. I think that you're always, if you're in touch with your ancestors, they're there all the time. There's no time when it's better or worse. It just feels cooler at that time of year. I don't know, there's something, because everything's dying and the harvest is happening and all that. There's something about that time. But I think same with Christmas. There's just something about that time of year that just feels really good. It has nothing to do with, I don't think it's so much religious as it is just the time of year and what we've done with it.
Yeah. I think I'm right there with you. Absolutely, I agree. All right. What about people who make you mad?
See, we don't. So most Wiccans will be quick to point out that we have what they call the Wiccan read, but it's like, which is, and you harm none, do what you will. Basically, whatever you want to do is okay, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. That includes yourself. So you don't do meth because that'll hurt you. You want to have a drink once in a while? That's totally cool. That's not hurting you, unless you get drunk and get in an accident with someone. Then it's not cool. So all that stuff, but it applies to every part of life, not just your craft. It's everything. If you really, really believe that, and I do. I don't like hurting people. I know a few witches who are constantly hexing other people. I really do. And you know what? They are exhausted physically, emotionally. They're broke. They don't look so good all the time. I mean, they always look like they just got off a bender. It's not a good idea. I mean, that stuff does kind of come back to you, but also it sucks your energy out. And why would you want to put all that hate out in the world? I got better things to do.
Maybe there's more to that threefold law.
I think if people are constantly putting it out, at some point your ancestors are going to be like, "What is wrong with you?" and turn their backs on you, and then you get no help.
Okay, so you don't hex people.
No, I don't, and I don't even believe in things like, I don't believe in love spells that are for an addition, for like a specific person. I think that's black magic.
Mm-hmm.
When you try to get one person and change their will, it'll work, but you will now have a slave that is there's no idea why they're infatuated with you, and they are not the person you wanted. They are kind of something's wrong with them now.
Oh,
it's not cool.
Yeah.
I don't think that's cool to take over the will of another person. So a general love spell that's like, you know what, I would like love in my life. That's a good thing to do. That's fine. You deserve that. But picking out somebody specific? Ooh.
Yeah. You just said the difference between possession and, manifesting something.
100%. Yeah, I don't like that. And there's lots of books you'll see at bookstores in the occult section about love spells. And I'm like, you know what? Just write your intentions down, put some perfume on it or cologne, and put it in your drawer and leave it alone. That's probably enough. I don't believe in binding spells either. And I know those are supposed to be neutral, but I don't think they are. And I'll tell you why. I knew of someone who was a total asshole Karen, sorry my language, and was really bothering a friend of mine at work to the point where he thought he was going to lose his job. Did a binding spell on her. She ended up the next day in a car accident in traction, literally bound up. She's a single mom. Her kids had no one to take care of them. That's why I don't do binding spells. You don't mess with things like that where you don't know what the outcome will be. If you're going to do something, you got to ask yourself, if that was done to me, would I deserve that? And now wait 48 hours and ask yourself that again. You need to have it's just not a good thing to do. There's better ways of resolving that.
Okay. All right. Last one. Do you have like telepathic powers? Are you shooting lasers out of your eyeballs? Anything like that? Crazy?
Absolutely. I can breathe underwater too, since here I was the queen of the ocean, kind of like a dolphin now. No, we don't. No, we don't. Everything you saw in Charmed is garbage. There's no special powers. When you actually do spells and things, whatever was going to happen naturally happens, but faster. Like you just accelerate the timeline of when it, like if you were supposed to wait 2 weeks for the second interview of your job, hey, we just moved up your interview to 2 days. Is that okay? Yes, thank you. Things unnaturally move faster, but they don't. It's not like you can't make anything unnatural happen. You can't make, you're not going to change your skin color or turn in, you can't make lightning come down and blow someone's house apart or things like that. That's just, those things aren't possible to do. Now, I don't know what the ancestors are capable of doing, but I know sometimes some bad things happen. I know one person who was told in their divination in Santeria, if your name is called, don't ever turn around. Just keep walking.
Like out in the woods or something?
Anywhere. And for 10 years, did fine. One day, was crossing the street, heard his name called, and it was someone he hadn't seen in years, and he turned around and a bus killed him.
Whoa. Oh, I just got goosebumps. That was weird.
Yeah. We have a thing in our religion that you get. It's I want to describe it, but it's kind of like this little statue thing that if it falls over, it kind of means your life's in danger. And it's made of pewter, so it's got a big base to it. So it's pretty hard to break it. It's solid. And there's a woman in the Ilay I was part of that said, she called up one day and she said, it's called Osun. She goes, my Osun, I came home from work and it was on the ground. We're like, oh no. And she goes, and it's crumpled in a ball like a giant took his fist and crushed all the metal into a ball. We're like, what? And then we went over to go and like two of the priests just like bolted for her house. And when they got there, she wasn't there. And we don't know what happened to her. We've never seen her again.
Whoa, she just disappeared?
Literally, yeah. Like her house was still there. Her cat was there. Her apartment was, everything was still the way it was. She just was gone.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it freaked us out.
So there's, oh my gosh, there's definitely something kind of mysterious happening there with a situation like that. I wouldn't even know how to explain that. But for the most part, what I'm hearing here is that y'all are a logical, down-to-earth bunch. And that does not sell the papers, Dave.
Not as exciting as people wanted it to be. Not as many dirty secrets.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. I appreciate the education. Well, before we get to the end here, I do want to talk a little bit about the Tarot of the Unexplained and the Kickstarter campaign you got going for it. Before I ask you about the deck, I'm curious about your technique, because these designs are so polished and distinct. Like, how are you doing it? What's your medium?
Adobe Illustrator would be my medium. I'm drawing all these from my head on my computer. A couple of these are people that I know. I'm sure you've recognized one of the cards.
What?
Yeah. And the court cards is going to be a lot more people like that will pop up, that you'll be like, at least a circle of people that I know will be like, oh, is that? Yes, it is. Kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So but I, most of the time I just, like Yetis and stuff, I don't know what they look like for real. So I just draw them on my head. And the UFOs in the cards I did, just strictly based on thinking about old sci-fi movies and a little bit about how people described them. But I tried to keep it slightly tongue-in-cheek and slightly, because cryptids and stuff are funny to me in a way, but they're also, like I don't necessarily believe in any of them, but I love the idea of them. And UFO stuff I have a weird connection to. So I used to work at the Los Alamos National Labs, and I always bugged them about UFOs. And every time I brought it up, they would just they wouldn't say no. They wouldn't say that's above your clearance rating. They just would be quiet for a second, and then they would go on and change the subject like nothing. It's like I hadn't said anything.
Oh, that's not suspicious at all.
It was frustrating, really frustrating.
Have you actually seen a UFO or had that experience?
I thought I did one time, and I was driving down. There's a huge freeway that goes from Detroit all the way to the Florida Keys called I-75. And I was driving down there on rush hour one day, and the sun was setting. And all of a sudden, I see this bright gleaming object, and a couple other cars started slamming to a stop. And a bunch of people got out of their cars and got their phones out and started trying to take pictures of it. And I did too. And all of a sudden, it turned, and we started laughing because we realized it was not a UFO. It was a seagull that was wet, and the water was reflecting off the sun so brightly that it looked like a gleaming metallic object. I mean, you could not make out any shape of this thing. It looked like a big amorphous shape that was bouncing up and down in the air. But I was like, oh, it was a seagull, But it totally threw me off. But no, otherwise than that, I've never seen one. My other weird experience with that, though, our connection to UFOs, is I used to work with a guy named Kit Green, Dr. Kit Green, when I was at GM, and he is, if you look him up on the Wikipedia page, he was part of MK Ultra and a bunch of other creepy projects.
Yeah, I recognize the name.
Yeah, he I actually mentioned him in the video on my Kickstarter page. I put him in the credits. He's a nice fellow, but kind of spooky.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I've had one experience. I've never told anybody. Maybe I'll tell it
Oh,
really
yeah?
quick. There's not much to tell. Yeah, I was a teenager and I lived out in the backwoods, nowhere of Montana, and I was walking down a dirt road back home. And I'm just walking along, and I look up in the sky, and there was this ball. I can describe it as like a ball of flames, flaming something, and I wouldn't say it was hovering. It wasn't like moving quickly, but it was close. Like it wasn't something out in the outer sphere or anything. It was close, and it was just this profoundly big ball of flames. And it just stayed there for a little bit. And I don't remember if I looked away and then it was gone, or if it just kind of went off and disappeared on its own. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, is that a plane that's on fire? Is that another comet? Like, what's going on? I bet they'll talk about it, in the local news.
Whoa.
Nothing in the local news. Nobody I asked or talked to at that time had seen this thing. And it was just so there, and just so odd looking.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that was something. Well, back
I always
to
wished I saw one.
yeah. I know my dad has seen a lot. He's got stories to tell. I'll have him on someday.
Oh, you should. Yeah.
Yeah. He's an interesting fellow, old minister as well. But back to the tarot. What was the initial inspiration behind creating this deck?
So I think it was a year or two ago, I did like one of those 30-day challenges of drawing on Instagram, and I decided to do cryptids. And it was the most popular thing I'd ever done. Usually my drawings are kind of more on the occult side, and this wasn't. And I got tons of followers, and I was like, oh, that was funny. And I've always kind of liked them. Like I've always had books on this stuff, and I've had books on UFOs and paranormal, all those things. But I was thinking, like, God, it'd be fun to like put all this together into a tarot deck sometime. And I just kind of mused about it. And then my wife's like, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, do it. No one else can do that like you could. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And the reaction's been really good. I'm having a blast. I like the idea of putting things that some people view as different camps, I view as all kind of the same. Like there's people like Jacques Vallée that believe UFOs are part of spirituality, not a separate alien race necessarily. And there's other people that are all like, no, they're here to, the Greys are going to eat us or whatever. There's so many different views on all that stuff. But there's other people that say same thing with Bigfoot, that it's some type of spiritual manifestation, and other people say no, it's an alien. Other people are like, no, it's Gigantopithecus. And I don't know. Everyone's got their own theories, but I kind of like the theory that all this stuff is connected. There's all something weird about it. And if you've ever read Robert Anton Wilson's books, one thing he talks about is that, man, once you start getting into this, you realize there's some type of cosmic jokester somewhere. The concept of the trickster god is big, and he likes messing with us. He or she is really messing with us and likes to do weird things. Great example, my friend John Tenney, his favorite story is about John Edmonton and the space pancakes. I mean, this guy was a poor farmer, got a knock on his door, saw a UFO, and someone knocked on the door, and it was an alien who gave him a plate of pancakes. And he just was like, why are you doing this? And he called the Air Force or somebody, and they all came out and they investigated and tested the pancakes, and they were fine, but they checked the guy out. They're like, he is not lying. Whatever happened to him happened, but we don't know what to make of it. And they said that all the real cases are all weird like that. They're not, a giant, they're not the normal, like we saw a big flaming ball or, kind of thing. They tend to be weird and have some kind of prankster aspect to them.
Yeah, there's definitely something weird going on, and you're right. Like once you start looking into this world, like you can't ever close your eyes again. I've noticed that you can no longer look away. Like something's going on behind the curtains there, behind the scenes. So I did notice, like, if anybody is familiar with the, I think it's the Rider-Waite deck, like that template.
Yeah.
You tend to follow like you got your suit, the 4 suits, and the court cards, and the major arcana. But the designs themselves are so very different. Are you going to be including like a booklet for their interpretations?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there is. Because I made this deck though, even though it's You can take it as kind of tongue-in-cheek or as just a collector's art deck. It's also, you can read with it. I did very careful research on symbolism, on which constellations are showing, moon phases, which plants are in the pictures, all that stuff. I did a lot of research on, so it's legit. And I've gotten some great letters from tarot readers telling me, my God, this is cool. You really are working on this. And I was like, yeah, if you're going to do it, do it. You know, it's 78 drawings is a lot to do. You might as well make them right. You know, but I love that. I'm glad you brought up the Wait Rider thing, because she's now getting, at least on Amazon, they're trying to push that. Look, she did all these cards and no one gave her credit. They gave Ryder all this credit, you know, and she's the one that did all the work, and she all this stuff was original. Same thing with the Crowley deck. Aleister Crowley gets all this credit, but the woman who painted everything, and I'm forgetting her name, Lady something, I mean, her work is so original and so amazing. It's like, there's some really amazing women in the occult. There always have been, and they're very unique visions.
I didn't even know that about the weight deck, that was two people. I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you go on Amazon and try to buy the deck, and you'll see one that says Amazon's Choice, it'll actually have the story there about how they're trying to push it. The story, we prefer you buy this deck because it does her justice, kind of thing. They've re-edited the colors and everything. I'm like, I love that. Yeah, I'm trying not to stay too close to her stuff because a lot of it doesn't make sense for this. Hers was based on, you know, original Italian and playing card stuff, where I mean, this is like a weird deck, so the readings of this are going to show something strange going on around you, and from what I've been playing with already on them, it's a little different reading with these, than a lot different actually, but I like it.
So the actual meanings for each of the cards they're going to be different.
Yeah, they're not going to. You won't be able to take them the same way you could take the straight deck. So you definitely want to read this, but also you could just. I mean, if you want to interpret your own way, go for it. I did do some things that are clever, like connecting certain landscapes so that certain cards will have connections, and you won't see it till you look, and you're like, oh my God, that landscape keeps going through that card. And when they're side by side, it'll might make you think about that card in a different relationship.
Oh, interesting. Well, there was a clip in your video where you did all of the, I think it was the Yeti cards, or was it the portal cards? They're all lined up next to each other, like in this big panorama.
I drew all the suits that way.
Yeah, so cool.
But they hook up with some of the other cards too. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I wonder if you haven't thought of it already, you ought to create or design your own, specific spreads. That's the word I was looking for, spreads, to include in that book.
That is a good idea. Make it shaped like a Yeti footprint or something. Yeah. This is the Tic Tac spread.
Tic Tac spread. Oh, well, we are running up against time here, but if you got a couple minutes, I'd love to throw some random questions at you. I save here for the end.
I do.
And I would love to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. We've talked about some of the biggest and most ridiculous misconceptions or myths about witchcraft. With everything that you do, with your religions, with your art, with your interests and involvement in the paranormal, what is the biggest misconception you've had to deal with that others have about you?
That it would affect my life negatively. And when I got initiated as Santero, I was working in one of the biggest ad agencies in America. I had to shave my head was shaved, and I had to wear all white for an entire year and not shake hands with people. I was basically like kind of pure and chaste for a whole year. I got promoted to senior vice president that year.
Whoa.
All my clients were totally cool with it. I'm just like, hey, I can't shake your hand this year, but next year I can, and I can't wait to. And they're like, oh, cool. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If someone with no prior knowledge at all was interested in practicing witchcraft, learning more about paganism, or delving into any other aspect of the occult, where would they start, and what should they be most wary of?
Like anything else, there's hucksters in every religion, and if you want to see the best, like most skeptical historical review of all the witchcraft religions, read Crafting the Art of Magic, and it's about like a lot of Wiccans will tell you that their religion is from the Stone Age, and it's this Paleolithic goddess cult, and that's just not true. It was invented in 1951 in England by Gerald Gardner. Yes, folk magic has existed for centuries. Yes, witchcraft has existed for centuries, but Wicca itself is a new religion, very, very new. And this book goes into all those, like how almost every religion, especially in the cult, has taken everything from either the Golden Dawn or Aleister Crowley and created these new cults, and even they are stealing from the Masons and everything. It's all together. That'd be a good thing to look at, or get a good. There's some books like Drawing Down the Moon by I think Margaret Adler from NPR wrote. It's the most definitive book on pagan religions ever written. It's massive, but it's really good. There's chapters on everything from all the events that go on around the world to different types of unusual cults within witchcraft, like the Fae, which are the gay witches that are only gay witch cults. There's a whole bunch of different things in there that, and she just did a phenomenal job researching. I think it's the best book I've ever read.
All right. If you could go back and change one thing about your entire journey, what would it be?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No, everything's been the way it should be.
All right.
Honestly.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah, I have no regrets about my religion.
Good. Yep. Good. That's refreshing to hear. I know a lot of people have regrets, but I love that. And you've had such an interesting, thorough journey as well. Well, I just have one more random question for you. Mr. Dave, would you be willing to teach us a spell?
Sure. I've got a great one in mind. We were talking about, do you hex people? And it's like, no. And I said that I have something better. I'm going to teach you how to do something you don't need to go to an occult shop to do. You already have everything in your house. And the ingredient is water and a grocery bag and a pencil. If you got someone who's bugging you, write their name down. You probably don't have parchment, so take a grocery bag. It's just as good. Tear off a little strip and write their name on it. Fold it up and put it in an ice cube tray with some water and freeze them. You will not hurt them. You will just keep them away. And that's the best and safest thing you can do. The first time I did it, and I had a boss who was kind of one of those just big, burly, he thought he was, he was Italian, but he kind of like played it up a bit kind of guy, like, hey, yeah, kind of guy. Mm-hmm. He was really rude to me all the time, and I did it to him, and he literally said to me the next day, I'm really sorry, I want to apologize to you. I feel like I have to chill out around you. I'm like, he literally said, chill out. Oh my God. But we call them peepsicles.
Peepsicles.
So make a peepsicle of somebody if they're bothering you. You won't hurt them. You'll just kind of let them chill out a little bit. It's like giving them a spiritual timeout.
Do you have to keep it there, like in your freezer for forever?
As long as you're worried about them.
Oh, okay.
Once they stop being a problem, you can get rid of it.
Yeah, I like that. So non-invasive and coming from a place of I don't want to hurt you, but
right.
I just need you to.
And I've even seen people do it, make it sweeter. Put some sugar in there with it or some honey, and make them feel better towards you.
Wow, that is very cool. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Where can folks find out more and connect with you?
So I've been on the internet so long that I'm in the Urban Dictionary, and there's a Wikipedia page about me. So anything Davezilla, it's probably me. But on Instagram, I have Davezilla and Davezilla.art. On Facebook, I have Davezilla.art. I have a Threadless shop that's Davezilla.threadless.com. And then my Kickstarter. And you can just look up Tarot of the Unexplained and you'll find that.
All right. And all of those links will be down in the show notes for people to conveniently check out. How about you take us out here? What's the message you would like to leave with everyone?
My message would be, stop and think before you cast judgment on other people and what they believe. You don't know what someone else is seeing, understanding, and we all have different things backgrounds that we're coming from, and try and put yourself in their shoes before you do anything or make judgments about it. You don't know the other side. You really don't. Everyone has their own story to tell, so try to see theirs before you make your own, cast aspersions on them.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Dave. It was so nice
Oh, it was
to
my
finally get to
pleasure.
talk with you.
I know, I've been listening to you since the start.
From the beginning. Yes. We've been friends
Yeah.
here for a second. So this was really cool. It was my pleasure.
Mine too. Thank you so much.
I really hope you all enjoyed this conversation. I am so grateful to know Dave as a friend and a friend of the show. Please go give him a follow on the socials I'm including below. And if you loved our conversation today and anything my guest has said, please consider supporting the creation of the Tarot of the Unexplained. It's Friday as of this recording, and the Kickstarter campaign is live until Wednesday. So head over there, show him and his dedication to this project some love. And just a quick reminder before we close out that Paranorm Girl will be dark next week. Don't you sweat it. I will be back the following Tuesday with the official Season 4 premiere, folks. Psychics and mediums, y'all. And ectoplasm, and parapsychological research, and James Randi. We'll get into it. So excited. Rate and review the show, baby. Rate and review. Every single additional 5-star rating means I can reach new people. Don't believe me? You don't have to believe me. It's not up to me. It's the algorithm, folks. Send me your personal experience of having your palm read, future told, or great-great-grandmother Mary contacted. I'll read it at the top of an upcoming episode. Email the show at paranormgirlpod@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. That is a wrap, guys. I'll catch y'all at the premiere. Stay safe, keep the nightlight on, and sleep with one eye open.